I was escorted out of my own office on a Thursday morning in February. Not quietly, not with the small, managed dignity of a private conversation and a box of belongings handed to me at a side exit. Publicly, in front of the open plan floor where 43 people I had worked alongside for 8 years sat at their desks, pretending not to watch while watching every single thing. 2 security guards, my keycard taken at the elevator, a cardboard box, someone had already packed it, which meant the decision had been made before I was told, which meant the Thursday morning meeting where my boss, Richard, told me the company was restructuring and my role was being eliminated, had been a performance rather than a conversation. I had built that department from 11 people to 43. I had taken a revenue line that was losing money when I inherited it and turned it into the highest margin division in the company. I had worked 8 years of long hours and harder decisions and the specific, grinding loyalty of someone who believed in what they were building. Richard had been at the company for 14 months. I walked out through the lobby with my cardboard box and my key card gone and 43 people pretending not to watch, and I did not cry. I want to be clear about that. Not because I am someone who does not cry. I am. I cry at films and at certain songs and at things my friends say that are unexpectedly kind. But in that lobby, on that Thursday morning, I did not cry because something had clarified inside me in the elevator, and the clarification did not leave room for crying. The clarification was this: I was going to be fine, and Richard was not. I need to tell you about Richard because Richard is the kind of person who exists in every industry and who I think you will recognize even if you have never met him specifically. Richard had come to the company from a larger firm where he had been, by his own account, a significant figure. His LinkedIn profile described him as a transformational leader. His manner in meetings was the manner of someone who had decided that certainty was a leadership quality and committed to performing it regardless of whether the certainty was warranted. He spoke with authority about things he had not yet learned. He made decisions quickly and attributed the speed to decisiveness rather than to the absence of sufficient information. He had been brought in by the board to, in the language the CEO had used at his introduction, bring fresh perspective and drive the company to its next phase of growth. Fresh perspective, in practice, meant that Richard did not value what had been built before he arrived. Things that existed before him were, in his framework, things that needed to be replaced by things he was going to create. People who had been there before him were, in his framework, people who were attached to the old way and who therefore represented resistance to his vision. I represented 8 years of the old way. I had also, in his first 3 months, made the mistake of being right in a meeting where he had been wrong. Not aggressively right. I had not challenged him publicly or made a performance of the correction. I had sent him a follow-up email after the meeting with the data that contradicted the assumption he had made, framed as helpfully as I could frame it. He had replied with a single line thanking me for the information. He had not changed the decision. I understood after that email that Richard was going to be a problem. I did not understand how quickly he was going to move. The Thursday morning meeting lasted 6 minutes. I know because I looked at my phone when I walked in at 9:14, and I looked at it again when I walked out at 9:20. 6 minutes to eliminate 8 years. Richard was practiced at the delivery, I will give him that. He had the language of corporate restructuring down precisely. Role elimination, organizational alignment, difficult decision, valued contribution, wish you well. He did not make eye contact for most of it, which told me he was either ashamed or simply uncomfortable with the direct human cost of what he was doing, and I was not in a position to determine which. I said, "Is this a conversation or a notification?" He said, "I'm afraid the decision has been made." I said, "When?" He said, "We've been working through the restructure for several weeks." I said, "I see." I looked at him for a moment, this man who had been at the company for 14 months, who had not built anything, who had arrived with fresh perspective, and was now eliminating the person who had built the thing he was supposedly there to take to its next phase, and I felt something I had not expected to feel. Calm. Complete, clarifying calm. I said, "I'll need the standard documentation, severance terms in writing by end of day." He said, of course, he would have HR send everything over. I stood up. I said, "Richard, I want you to know that I genuinely hope this works out the way you're planning." He looked at me uncertainly, trying to determine if this was sincere or if it was something else. It was something else. I picked up my bag and I walked out, and the security guards were already there, and the cardboard box was already packed, and I walked through 43 people pretending not to watch, and I went down in the elevator and through the lobby and out through the glass doors into the February air. I drove home. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table and I opened my laptop and I started making a list. This is the thing about being the person who built something for 8 years. You know exactly what you built, and you know exactly what it is worth, and you know exactly what happens to it when the person running it does not understand it. I had not been idle in the months since Richard arrived. I want to be honest about that. I had seen what was coming, not the specific Thursday morning, not the cardboard box, but the direction of things, and I had been preparing in the quiet, methodical way I had learned to prepare for things. I had been keeping records, performance data, revenue figures, growth metrics, the specific documented evidence of what the department had produced under my leadership. I had been maintaining relationships with the clients who were, as I understood it, loyal to me rather than to the company, which is a distinction that matters enormously when the time comes. I had also, in the previous 6 months, been having conversations, careful, preliminary, nothing committed conversations with 2 people who I knew had both the resources and the interest to invest in something in my industry if the right opportunity presented itself. I had not known what the right opportunity would be. On that Thursday afternoon, sitting at my kitchen table with my coffee, I began to understand. The 2 years that followed are not a simple story, and I will not pretend they were. There were months that were hard. There is a particular kind of hard that comes from having built something and then being removed from it and having to start over. Not from zero, never from zero when you have 8 years of expertise and relationships behind you, but from a place that feels like zero on the days when the rebuild is slow and the doubt is loud. I started a consulting practice. It was modest at first, 2 clients, then 4, then 8. The clients came because the relationships I had built over 8 years were real, and the people in those relationships trusted my judgment and wanted to keep working with me in whatever form that was available. I also kept watching the company, not obsessively, not with the energy of someone whose primary focus is the thing they have lost, but with the calm, professional attention of someone who knows an industry well and who can read the indicators. What I saw over those 2 years was exactly what I had understood in Richard's office on the Thursday morning. He did not know what he had. The department I had built began to decline within 6 months of my departure. Slowly at first, in ways that could be explained away, and then faster in ways that could not. Clients left. The revenue line I had taken from loss to the highest margin in the company began to reverse. People left too, the good ones, the ones who had been there because the work was good, and who stayed because of the culture I had built, who had no particular loyalty to Richard's vision, and who found better options once the thing that had kept them was gone. By 18 months after my departure, the company had a problem it could not restructure its way out of. By 20 months, the board was having conversations I was not part of, but was hearing about through the network of relationships that 8 years builds. By 22 months, I had a meeting with my 2 investors. The acquisition closed on a Tuesday in December, almost exactly 2 years after the Thursday in February when I had walked out through the lobby with my cardboard box and a gone keycard. I went up in the elevator. I walked out onto the open plan floor. Some of the 43 people were still there. Not all of them. The good ones had mostly left, which I had anticipated and which was going to require work to rebuild, but some of them. And they looked up when I walked in, and I saw on their faces something I recognized, the specific expression of people who are witnessing something they had not been sure was possible, and who are recalibrating accordingly. I said good morning to the floor. Then I went to the office that had been Richard's. Richard was gone, had been gone for 3 months, had left for a role at another company where I imagine he is bringing fresh perspective, and I sat down at the desk and I opened my laptop and I started making a list. There was a lot of work to do. I was genuinely glad to do it. Richard sent me an email 2 weeks after the acquisition was announced. It was a professional email, warm in the managed way of professional emails that are trying to strike the right note. It congratulated me on the acquisition. It wished me well with the company. It said he had always had great respect for my work and that he was glad the business was in good hands. I read it twice. Then I replied with 3 sentences. I thanked him for his message. I said I appreciated the kind words. I said I hoped his current role was going well. I did not say anything else. I did not need to. The building said it. The desk said it. The 43 people on the floor and the work of rebuilding what had been dismantled, and the Tuesday morning in December when I had walked back in through the glass doors, all of it said everything that needed to be said. I had not come back for Richard. I had come back for the thing I had built, which deserved better than what had been done to it, and which I was now in a position to give better. That was enough. More than enough. That was everything. People ask me what I did in the elevator on that Thursday morning in February that produced the calm, the clarifying calm that came over me between the 6th floor and the lobby, and that I have not fully lost since. I have thought about this question carefully because I think the honest answer is more useful than the satisfying one. The satisfying answer is that I knew in some intuitive, certain way exactly what was going to happen, that I had a plan, that the calm was the calm of someone who already knows the ending. The honest answer is that I did not know anything specific. I did not have a plan. I had relationships and expertise and 8 years of knowledge and 2 preliminary conversations that had not yet committed to anything. I did not know on that Thursday morning that I was going to buy the company. I did not know it was going to take 2 years. I did not know any of the specific shape of what came next. What I knew was simpler and more foundational than any of that. I knew what I had built. I knew what it was worth, and I knew that removing me from it did not remove what I knew, or what I was capable of, or the relationships I had built, or any of the actual substance of 8 years of work. They could take the Keycard. They could not take any of the things that had produced what the Keycard opened. That is what the calm was made of. Not certainty about the future, certainty about yourself. And it turned out that certainty about yourself, held clearly and without performance, and without the need for anyone else to confirm it, is a more reliable foundation than anything a company can give you or take away. She doesn't stay silent. She doesn't stay broken. She rises. Sometimes rising looks like a Tuesday morning in December, walking back through the glass doors, going up in the elevator, sitting down at the desk that used to belong to the man who had you escorted out, and opening your laptop, and starting a new list. Subscribe. New story every week, and every single one of them ends the same way. She rises. Leave a comment. Tell me, have you ever been walked out of something you built? I read every single one.